Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you guys with the most up-to-date political, economic and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. Let's jump in. Okay, happy Tuesday everybody. As we discussed yesterday, BA5 is in Shanghai, and fears are growing that more restrictions and even lockdowns may be on the way for China's financial hub. While over 100 million people are currently under some form of lockdown or restrictions, according to analysts with Nomura, another citywide lockdown of Shanghai itself would be economically and politically devastating for the country. Indeed, China still hasn't moved on from the economic and political fallout of the first Shanghai lockdown. Even state media admits that there is palpable fear and concern in Shanghai, with the state-run Global Times writing today, quote, "Facing the new challenge of the highly transmissible Omicron subvariant BA521, many locals fear a return to the situation in March, when the city went into 2-month static management to curb the spread of the virus," end quote. We can see here that the state media continues to use the euphemism static management. Shanghai maintains that a lockdown, like what was seen in Wuhan in 2020, was never officially implemented in Shanghai. The same state media article goes on, however, to assure readers that the situation is under control. Quote, "However, experts believe that the situation will be better this time, given the rich experience the city has accumulated from the previous battles and fresh lessons it can draw from Beijing and Xi'an." End quote. More than half of all districts in Shanghai will start a 3-day mass nucleic acid testing starting on Tuesday today, as the city is yet again in a face-off with small sporadic outbreaks, which has seen 319 positive cases so far, with the city designating 1 high risk and 37 medium risk areas. A mandate for testing more than 6 million residents in the southern Chinese city of Guangzhou, also known as Canton in English, another critically important megacity, was rolled out this week too. Analysts understand fully well the political calculus which could push Shanghai to another lockdown if the current wave is not brought under control. Quote, "While policymakers have been tweaking dynamic zero COVID to make it more dynamic, there are no indications, especially since Xi reiterated the correctness of the policy in Wuhan in late June, that the fundamental policy will change. And so that may leave officials with no choice but to lock down if BA5 cases increase, as it appears it is more transmissible and more capable of evading vaccines and immune defenses than earlier variants, which means we could be on the precipice of another set of lockdown nightmares, both for the people and for the economy. How does the PRC leadership avoid such a grim scenario?" End quote. The market is concerned too. China's benchmark CSI 300 index of Shanghai and Shenzhen listed stocks dropped 1.7% by the end of trading on Monday yesterday, as spooked investors dumped shares in response to these new restrictions and outbreaks in Shanghai and other important regions. One institutional player, Dickie Wong, head of research at Kingston Securities, expressed to the Financial Times, quote, "The market sentiment is really bad. There's basically no good news." End quote. Shares in Chinese developers were among the worst performers in the Greater China market, with the Hong Kong Mainland Properties Index falling more than 5%. The technology sector following closely behind. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Tech Index shed almost 4% on Monday, with Alibaba down 6%. With the new restrictions rolled out in the Macau Special Administrative Region, which we covered yesterday, casino operators saw further stock sell-offs yesterday too. Hong Kong listed shares in Wayne Macau fell 6.7%, and Sands China lost 8.2%, down 60% since its height in January 2020. 90% of Macau's local government revenue comes from the gambling industry. Hey guys, if you're appreciating this video and getting some value from it, don't forget to hit the like button. It's a huge help. And for anyone who wants to go the extra mile and help me keep China Update sustainable, Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. This is the best way you can help keep this channel going and subscriber supported. As always, thank you so much everybody for the ongoing support. In a meeting of foreign ministers, China's Wang Yi expressed to Australia's Penny Wong that, quote, "The root cause of the difficulties in China-Australia relations in the past few years lies in the fact that the former Australian government insisted on regarding China as a rival or even a threat. with a series of irresponsible words and deeds against China. End quote. That is to say, China's official position remains, "This is all your fault." Wang Yi then gave Australia's Ms. Wong a list of demands which Australia must follow in order to improve China-Australia relations. These demands are as follows. First, stick to regarding China as a partner rather than a rival. Second, stick to the way we get along with each other, which features seeking common ground while reserving differences. Third, stick to not targeting any third party or being controlled by any third party. Fourth, stick to building positive and pragmatic social foundations and public support. Now, if Beijing is acting in good faith and truly does want to improve relations with this move, this list of demands, then anyone who has met an Australian will tell you that this list of demands is quite a diplomatic faux pas. Speaking at a press conference in Canberra on Monday, yesterday, Australia's new Prime Minister expressed that Australia, quote, "doesn't respond to demands," end quote. Now, while we're looking at international relations, let's move to China-Japan. Last Friday, we discussed the initial People's Republic of China response and reactions to the news of former Prime Minister of Japan Shinzo Abe's assassination in Nara. Now, several days later, we can re-examine this topic, which tells us a lot about current Chinese domestic politics, as well as its relations with Japan and others in much more detail. To put it in a nutshell, official reactions, that is, in state media and from the Foreign Ministry, has been cool but restrained, while the online reaction has been more visceral and largely negative. This is largely what we anticipated last Friday. For his part, General Secretary Xi Jinping's official response was courteous, expressing, according to state-run Xinhua, quote, "deep condolences over Abe's sudden and unfortunate passing," end quote, and saying, quote, "Abe made efforts to improve China-Japan relations during his time in office and contributed positively to this endeavor," end quote. Online sentiment was quite different. A post saying, "Let the celebrations begin," in response to Abe's death, swiftly garnered over 150,000 likes on Weibo. Other ghoulish jokes followed. "Is the corpse okay? The corpse's EKG is stable. Although he lost his life, he gained his freedom. And is the gun okay?" Former Global Times editor Hu Xijin attempted to break the nationalist fever on Weibo by encouraging followers to put their political disputes with him to the side, but soon pivoted to accusing external forces of malicious manipulation of netizen comments after he, too, became a target of nationalist rage. End quote. Despite this largely negative environment, some online voices posted thoughtful and critical reflections on the widespread nationalist reactions, calling on universal condemnation of political violence and extremism wherever it may occur. Quote, "I learned they actually had no clue whether or not Abe was anti-China while in office. In fact, they didn't even know what years he held the post of Prime Minister, what year he retired, or what policies his party pursued while in power. All they knew was this: Abe was once Japan's leader, and Japanese people dying is a good thing, especially if they are major political figures. That's just how they think. The so-called community of common destiny for mankind first requires us to live by basic human values. Violence and killing must be opposed, resolutely opposed, whether they occur in Japan, America, or China." End quote. Some Chinese commentators in recent days have written pieces in English on state media platforms for an international audience, seeking to explain the context in which this fiery nationalist outpouring should be examined. Though, as we read, we cannot help but ask ourselves, is this really for an international audience or a domestic one? Quote, "The joy of some Chinese towards Abe's death shows their true feelings about Japan. It's a natural and frank reaction to the sad and tragic history of Chinese people being killed, bullied, and suppressed by Japanese aggressors in the first half of the 20th century, as well as Abe's attitude of following the US in containing China. Foreigners' goodwill to China will be remembered for generation to generation if these foreigners are friendly to China. If a foreigner treats China badly, he or she won't gain Chinese people's leniency even when they die. The Chinese society's mixed, complicated reaction towards the assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is normal and real. They are all parts of China's complicated public opinion response, providing a window for the outside world to understand better China's complexity." End quote. Wang then felt it was necessary to conclude with this line, quote, "International politicians may have to think, if they continue to contain China, what will they receive after their death from 1.4 billion Chinese people?" End quote. Now, while we are here, one more thing. Yesterday, Monday, Taiwan Vice President William Lai made a private trip to Tokyo to pay his respects to Shinzo Abe. With this act, Lai became the most senior official from Taiwan to visit Japan in 50 years. We certainly are living through turbulent and transformative times. See you tomorrow.